Staff Sergeant Ethan Cole heard it first, a paper-thin whisper snagging on the wind. He and his K9 partner, Shadow, had just cleared the truck stop's rear lot after a prowler call. Frost glittered on the overpass rail. The whisper came again, the sound of a plea reduced to its root. Shadow snapped from heel to alert, head angled toward the concrete span. "Lead," Ethan said. The leash went slack. The shepherd arrowed up the embankment. Under the bridge, the light went pewter. A shopping cart lay on its side like a rib cage. Shadow slowed, nose skimming where concrete met dirt, then pawed at a burlap sack wedged behind a drift of trash. "Back." Ethan eased the dog to a sit and knelt. The sack twitched. He slid his rescue blade under a cruel half-hitch and cut. Fabric side open. A child blinked up at him, eyes too large for her face, straw-yellow hair stuck to her scalp. Bruises ringed tiny wrists and ankles. She couldn't be more than 6. Her lips moved. This time he heard the words, "I'm so hungry." They threaded through the armor he'd built over years of doing the right thing in the worst moments. He shrugged out of his patrol jacket and tucked it around her shoulders. "I've got you. You're safe." Shadow leaned in, breath warm on the cold air. The girl flinched, then touched the shepherd's muzzle with grave ceremony, as if sealing a pact. The dog's ears softened. A faint whine bled out like relief. "Dispatch, Unit 12. Ethan said into his mic. "Mile marker 214, eastbound overpass. Located abandoned juvenile female, approximately 6, conscious, responsive, signs of hypothermia. Request EMS priority and an additional unit. Copy, Unit 12. EMS 9 minutes. Patrol car in 4. She's not a juvenile," the girl whispered, words fraying at the edges. "She's Lena." "Lena," Ethan repeated. "Names shrink the world to a size you can defend. Do you know who put you here?" Her gaze slid to the shopping cart, the frost-silvered rail, the smear of sky. Children look at places like that when truth won't yet fit through their mouths. He didn't push. Shadow's head flicked toward the slope. Ethan followed the line. Frost there was broken by a heel drag and shallow boot tread. Near the cart, a cigarette butt lay fresh enough to shine. He photographed tread and butt, then bagged the latter in a glove. A trail isn't a trail until you decide to read it. "Do you have a grandma?" Lena asked suddenly. "Do you?" He countered gently. She said, "I could keep him if I was good." Lena's eyes slid to Shadow and away, caught wanting too much. "But he ran, so I chased, and then, the sack." Those last 2 words sounded like they belonged together. A promise, a dog, a punishment that made no sense. Ethan angled his body to block the wind. "Shadow's staying right here with you, okay?" At his name, the shepherd did a tiny bow service distilled to kindness. Something like a smile flickered at the corner of Lena's mouth. Sirens ghosted the edge of sound. A coat-tail tan flicked out of sight along the overpass lip. Shadow's growl rose, controlled and low. Ethan moved Lena behind him. He wouldn't climb while alone with a victim. People who chose sacks chose other things too. "Unit 12, dispatch crackled. Status?" "Scene active. Unknown observer possible," he said. "Hold the ridge on arrival." He crouched again. "Lena, tell me one thing you like." She weighed the question. "Toast," she said finally, "with cinnamon." "Good choice." He glanced at Shadow. "He's partial to bacon." That seemed important to her. Her hand found the dog's ear and held it, careful as if it might sing. The ambulance's whoop grew distinct. Help was about to turn a private catastrophe into public fact witnesses, tape, statements, the long official road. This morning felt sharply particular. A coat tail, a fresh filter, a boot print tearing frost, a name. Officer Morales' voice carried from the shoulder. "You good, Cole?" "Girl's stable," Ethan called back. "Eyes on the ridge. We may have a watcher." Morales nodded and posted high. Ethan returned to the ground where life breaks into small tasks. Keep the kid warm, keep the dog calm, keep the scene clean. He tested Lena's fingertips. They were pinking up. "Medics will check you," he said. "Then we'll find you something to eat." Her eyes drifted, then came back. "Can he come?" "If he could ride the ambulance, he would," Ethan said. "He'll follow us wherever we go." Traffic rolled indifferent above. Below, hunger loosened its grip just enough for Lena to borrow the sirens as proof that sometimes the world turns toward you. Ethan allowed himself exactly 3 breaths of that belief. Then he filed details in the mental ledger he trusted. Trust the dog, read the ground, keep the kid alive. Everything else would be discovered step by step, the way truth is uncovered by people who decide to look. When the EMTs reached them, Shadow shifted to make room for the stretcher, then planted himself like a sentinel. Lena didn't let go of his ear until the last second. The shepherd accepted it, eyes tracking her like a vow. Ethan stood, joints complaining more from the weight of things than age. "Someone watched," he told Morales. "Someone always does," Morales said. "Not this time," Ethan answered. Shadow's ears came up like a period at the end of a sentence. Ordinary daylight went on, but the story had already changed shape. They just didn't know how yet. The ambulance doors thudded shut, carrying Lena toward warmth and protocol. Ethan stood on the gravel shoulder, Shadow's leash wrapped twice around his palm. The shepherd's hackles still lifted in the direction of the ridge where the tan coat had vanished. Some instincts you learn, others you borrow from the dog at your side. Morales climbed down from the slope, breathing hard. Tracks veer east through the brush. Someone watched for sure. Who dumps a kid, then lingers to admire the work? Ethan said. He wasn't asking. His voice held the hard edge of memory. Psychopaths, or someone who wants to know if she's found. Shadow tugged, nose twitching in sharp arcs. Ethan crouched, touching the frost where a boot heel had bitten. Size 11, lug sole. Weight uneven, favoring the right leg. He filed the facts like tools for later. "Scene's yours," Morales said. "I'll file the initial." "No," Ethan said, eyes still on the ground. "This one's mine." That night the barracks were too quiet. Shadow circled once, then curled against the metal cot. Ethan sat at the desk with his notebook open. Words came slowly, same as they always did when the walls felt close. Lena. 6. Bruises consistent with restraint. Whisper. "I'm so hungry." Observed tan coat, male gait, right leg drag. The dog lifted his head and gave a soft huff, as if to say, "Enough." Ethan closed the book, but not the thoughts. He remembered another winter night, another child, a convoy in Kandahar. Shrapnel ripping the air, his men pulling him out, his K9 bleeding out beside him. Not Shadow, another shepherd. Rook, gone under the dust. Ethan had sworn he wouldn't let the next one down. Shadow had inherited that vow. 2 days later, Child Protective Services called. Lena refused to speak to the caseworker but asked for the man with the dog. Protocol said Ethan should decline. Conscience said otherwise. The shelter smelled of disinfectant and fear. Kids clutched stuffed animals like flotation devices. In a corner, Lena sat small and rigid, eyes drilling the floor. "Hey, kid," Ethan said softly. Shadow padded forward, tail low, eyes warm. Lena looked up. "Toast?" He smiled despite himself. Brought cinnamon this time. He unwrapped the foil packet. Her fingers shook as she reached, but she ate like someone who still believed in scarcity. Shadow lay close enough for her hand to brush his coat. "Do you remember who put you in that sack?" Ethan asked gently, her jaw clenched. "Grandma said, if I tell, he'll come back." Shadow gave a low, reassuring rumble. Ethan leaned forward. "Then he'll have to get through us first." For the first time, Lena's eyes steadied. A soldier's eyes, he thought grimly, already knowing the world could break you. Later, Morales called. "Lab pulled prints off that cigarette butt. Belongs to a guy named Doyle Kearns. Prior convictions. Trafficking, assault, known to move kids." Ethan's chest went cold. A child left in a sack wasn't neglect, it was disposal. He knelt beside Shadow. "You hear that? We're not done." The shepherd tilted his head, eyes sharp. That night, Ethan dreamed. Rook's last breath, his wife's empty side of the bed, and Lena's whisper threading through all of it, "I'm so hungry." He woke before dawn, Shadow standing stiff at the door, ears locked forward. Somewhere outside, tires crunched gravel slow, too slow. Ethan's hand found the pistol in the drawer. He slid the window shade a finger's width. A tan coat leaned against the fence post, watching. Smoke curled from a cigarette. The watcher knew where Ethan lived. The tan figure outside Ethan's fence didn't move, didn't flinch when Shadow barked low in his chest. Cigarette smoke curled like a signal. Ethan slid the curtain closed, heartbeat drumming against the silence. He'd been watched before war zones, ambushes, but this was his home. Lena had been carried past this fence not 2 days earlier. Shadow shifted, eyes glowing faint in the dark. Ethan whispered, "Easy, he wants us rattled." When the crunch of tires finally faded, Ethan holstered the pistol and sat on the edge of the cot. His hands shook once, then stilled. "We can't wait for him to come back," he told the dog. Shadow answered with the soft woof that meant agreement. The next morning, Ethan met Morales in the precinct lot. He laid the facts down like cards. Doyle Kearns, Prince match, he's escalating. He left the girl to die, then stood outside my fence. That's not fear, that's ownership. Morales rubbed his temples. Without a warrant, we can't touch him. CPS has Lena under wraps, but if Kearns has others, he does. Ethan's voice was iron. A man like that doesn't stop at one. Shadow paced, restless with the scent of unfinished work. Morales exhaled. "You're not even supposed to be on this case." "I'm already in it," Ethan said. Ethan's war taught him to trust dogs over men. That night, he fitted Shadow with his old harness. The shepherd stiffened, as if recognizing the gravity of the gesture. Together they tracked the scent from the cigarette butt. Frost melted under Shadow's nose, leading them into the industrial district where warehouses hunched like sleeping beasts. They paused outside a corrugated building marked Kearns Shipping. Security lights buzzed overhead. Through a crack in the panel door, Ethan saw stacked crates, tarps thrown carelessly across them. A muffled cry bled through. Shadow froze, ears locked forward. Ethan pressed against the metal, steadying his breath. Another cry, this time clear, a child's voice. He snapped a photo, sent it encrypted to Morales with a single line, "Probable cause." Before he could retreat, the panel door shrieked open. A flashlight beam seared the dark. Doyle Kearns stepped out, coat collar high, face a blunt collection of scars. "Well, well, soldier boy," his voice rasped like gravel. "You should have left the sack where it lay." Shadow lunged, growl shaking the night. Ethan yanked the leash taut. "You left a child to die. That ends now." Kearns smiled, slow and wrong. "You think you're her savior? You don't know what you're stepping into." Footsteps echoed behind Kearns. Two more men, bulked under heavy jackets. One carried a pipe, the other a chain. Shadow's hackles rose. Ethan shifted stance, weight balanced, pistol close. "You come closer, he'll take your throat first." Kearns flicked ash from his cigarette. "Maybe, but can he stop all of us?" The men advanced. Ethan's thumb brushed the pistol's safety. Shadow trembled with the electric urge to strike. "Shadow," Ethan whispered. The shepherd crouched, ready. This was no longer about one girl in a sack. This was about whoever else Kearns kept behind those crates. Ethan knew what came next. A fight measured in seconds, choices sharp as glass, survival balanced on a leash, stretched between him and the only partner he trusted. The first man swung the chain wide. Ethan shoved Shadow aside and stepped into the arc, shoulder absorbing the glancing blow. Pain snapped through him, but training kept his stance anchored. Shadow launched forward like a bullet, jaws clamping on the chain, wielder's forearm. The man shrieked, metal links crashing to the ground. The second man came with the pipe. Ethan drew fast, one sharp crack, bullet sparking concrete inches from the man's boot. "Next one takes bone," Ethan warned. The man froze, eyes flicking to Shadow tearing at his partner's arm. Kearns didn't move. He just watched, cigarette ember glowing, as if the fight were theater meant only for him. "Call him off," Kearns said lazily. Ethan's breath fogged. "Let her go. Every kid in there." Kearns smiled, wolfish. "You don't understand. She wasn't abandoned. She was delivered." The words hit harder than the chain. Ethan felt Shadow's growl deepen, vibrating against the man's bones. From inside the warehouse, a muffled sob cut the air. More than one voice, small, choked. Ethan's gut twisted. The pipe man bolted, his partner wrenched, free of Shadow's bite, clutching a bleeding arm, and stumbled after. Kearns didn't chase. He just dropped his cigarette, crushed it under boot heel, and backed into the warehouse. "You're already too late, soldier." The door slammed. Ethan pressed his hand to Shadow's ruff. "With me." Together, they moved fast, low, circling to the rear of the warehouse. A rusted service door hung by a single hinge. Shadow nosed it open. Inside, the air reeked of diesel and fear. Rows of crates lined the floor, some stenciled with shipping codes, others unmarked. Behind a stack, Ethan found them, 3 children, huddled in a blanket that smelled of mold. Eyes wide, hollow. One girl clutched a doll, missing its head. "Shh," Ethan whispered, crouching low. "We're getting you out." Shadow pressed close, letting each child touch his fur. They calmed enough to follow. Ethan's earpiece crackled Morales. "SWAT en route, 10 minutes out. You secure?" "Negative," Ethan whispered. "Kearns is inside. Kids found. Extracting now." "Copy. Hold position." But the radio hiss cut short. Power cut. Kearns had killed the feed. Shadow froze, muscles locking. A sound rolled through the warehouse. Boots on metal stairs. Slow, measured. "Do you know what soldiers are, Lena's hero?" Kearns's voice echoed. "Men who follow orders until there's nothing left of them but ghosts. Ideal in the living, the desperate, the forgotten. People pay well for that." Ethan shoved the kids behind crates. His pistol tracked the shadows above. Shadow crouched at heel, teeth bared. Kearns appeared on the catwalk, shotgun loose in his grip, smile carved deep in scar tissue. "One man, one mutt, and a handful of broken toys. You can't save them all, soldier. You couldn't then. You won't now." Ethan's chest tightened at the memory buried under sand and fire. Rook bleeding out, a convoy burning, the weight of men he couldn't carry. Shadow growled, snapping the memory back into now. Ethan steadied his breath. "Try me." The shotgun boomed. Metal sparked. Children screamed. Shadow leapt, and the warehouse dissolved into chaos. The shotgun blast echoed like thunder inside the steel cavern. Sparks rained from the catwalk where pellets had struck. Ethan rolled low, dragging one child under cover with him. Shadow sprang upward in a blur of blackened muscle, teeth flashing white in the half-light. Kearns fired again, buckshot tearing into crates, splinters showering. Shadow twisted mid-air, clipping the edge of the catwalk, snarling as metal rang under his paws. He lunged for Kearns's wrist. The shotgun clattered to the floor below. Kearns bellowed, a sound half rage, half shock. He backhanded Shadow with a steel-plated glove, sending the shepherd skidding across the catwalk. Ethan's stomach dropped, but Shadow staggered up, growl ragged but alive. "Stay down!" Ethan shouted, voice slicing through the chaos. The children pressed tighter behind the crates, eyes wide, ears ringing from gunfire. Ethan climbed the steel ladder 2 rungs at a time. His pistol tracked the shape above. Kearns drew a knife from his coat, blade long, serrated. "You soldiers!" Kearns spat, circling. "You think loyalty means something? Dogs die, kids die, but the market ends tonight." Ethan cut in. They clashed. Kearns swung the blade. Ethan caught his wrist, the knife grazing past his ribs, heat blooming red. He shoved back, teeth clenched against pain. Shadow launched again, clamping onto Kearns's calf. The trafficker roared, stumbling. Ethan drove his fist into the scarred jaw, bone crunching under the impact. Below, the children screamed again, smoke beginning to curl from a tipped kerosene lamp Kearns had kicked earlier. Flames licked up a tarp, hungry and fast. The warehouse was becoming a furnace. "Get them out, Shadow!" Ethan barked. The shepherd obeyed without hesitation, bounding down the releasand. Stairs, barking sharp commands the children somehow understood. Tiny feet scrambled after him toward the service door. Kearns lunged, knife flashing again. Ethan caught the blade with both hands, edge slicing into his palm. He twisted, forcing the weapon away, then slammed his forehead into Kearns's face. Blood spattered. The flames roared higher, heat choking. Beams groaned above. Ethan's vision swam. He shoved Kearns back against the rail. For a heartbeat, scarred eyes met his mocking even through blood. "You'll never save them all," Kearns hissed. The rail snapped. Kearns toppled backward into the inferno below. His scream cut short in the smoke. Ethan staggered, ribs screaming, blood slick on his hands. The children were gone, Shadow had them. He stumbled down the ladder, fire eating the walls around him. At the service door, Shadow stood, herding the kids into the icy night. Ethan collapsed against the frame, sucking air that wasn't fire. Sirens wailed closer, now SWAT, EMS, backup too late, but still necessary. Morales' voice crackled faint over the restored radio. "Cole? Status?" Ethan looked at the children huddled in blankets, Shadow standing guard, eyes bright in the red glow. He let out a breath that trembled. "Victims secure," he rasped. Suspect neutralized, fire in progress. He glanced at Shadow, who pressed against his side, steady and warm, despite the soot in his fur. "And Morales?" Ethan added, voice low. "Yeah?" "Tell dispatch. It wasn't just luck. The dog saved them." Shadow's tail gave one exhausted thump against the ground. Behind them, the warehouse roared into collapse, sparks streaking into the night sky like dying stars. The warehouse was nothing but a smoking skeleton by dawn. Fire crews doused the last embers, steam rising in ghostly plumes. Ethan stood off to the side with his jacket draped over Lena's shoulders. She hadn't let go of Shadow since the night before. The shepherd sat, soot-streaked but steady, allowing her to curl against his side as if he were carved of stone. Morales approached, helmet under his arm. His face was grim. "We pulled what was left from the wreckage. Can't confirm a body yet. Too much collapse." Ethan's gut tightened. "You mean Kearns could have walked out?" Morales sighed. "I mean, we don't know, but if he's alive, he won't be quiet for long." Ethan looked down at Lena. She had finally slept, face pressed against Shadow's ruff, breath shallow but even. She needed the illusion that monsters died when fire took them. Ethan knew better. 2 weeks passed. The rescued children were placed into protective custody, but Lena refused every foster family offered. "Only him," she whispered, pointing to Ethan, "and the dog." Rules bent under the weight of trauma. CPS allowed supervised visits. Ethan found himself driving to the shelter every other night, Shadow's ears pricking the second Lena's small frame appeared in the doorway. Those visits rewired something inside him. The war had left him hollow. His wife's death had left him numb, but Lena's fragile trust began stitching seams he thought forever torn. Still, shadows lingered. Ethan woke in cold sweats, hearing Rook's last cry, feeling again the crack of the convoy blast. Shadow would nose his hand, grounding him, reminding him, "This time, you saved them." But in the quiet hours, doubt gnawed. Kearns's words replayed, "You can't save them all." He had spoken like a man who still had cards left to play. The confirmation came one grey morning. Morales slapped a file onto Ethan's desk. Photos spilled out. Security cam stills from a gas station 3 states over. Grainy but clear enough. A tan coat, a scarred face, cigarette smoke curling. Doyle Kearns, alive. Ethan's jaw clenched. Shadow growled, low and certain, as if he understood every detail. "He's moving again," Morales said, "and he's not alone. Reports of missing kids match his trail." Ethan's fist closed over the photos. "Then it isn't finished." That night, Lena sat cross-legged on the shelter cot, drawing clumsy crayon pictures. One showed Ethan, tall, in uniform. Another showed Shadow with a cape tied around his neck. And the last a sack with a child's hand reaching out, and a man in a tan coat looming above. When she noticed Ethan watching, she whispered, "He's not gone. I saw him in my dream." Ethan crouched, looking her in the eye. "Dreams can't hurt you, but sometimes," Lena said, voice steady in a way that cut deeper than any blade, "they tell the truth." Shadow whined, pressing close. Ethan realized then, the fire hadn't ended the story. It had only burned away the illusion of safety. The real battle was still ahead, and this time, Kearns would come for what he had lost. And Ethan would be waiting. Snow fell in restless swirls, soft enough to disguise the sound of boots in the night. Ethan's cabin stood on the edge of town, a place chosen for quiet, but quiet could be broken. Inside, Shadow stirred before Ethan did, ears pricking, a growl rumbling in his chest. Ethan snapped awake, hand sliding to the pistol on the nightstand. He listened. The creak of wood outside, deliberate, careful. Lena slept on the couch under Shadow's old blanket, her crayon drawings taped to the wall, the soldier, the dog, and a family that didn't exist yet, but wanted to. Ethan's heart tightened. He rose silently, motioned Shadow to heel, and moved to the window. There he was. Doyle Kearns, tan coat dusted with snow, standing at the tree line, cigarette ember burning bright in the dark. Ethan's pulse slowed, a soldier's calm settling in. The man hadn't died in the fire, he had endured, and now he had come hunting. The next day, Morales slammed a file onto the table at the precinct. "He's leaving bodies." Foster homes hit across 3 counties, 2 kids missing, same signature, sacks, bruises, and fear. "He's escalating," Ethan said flatly. "He wants me to see it." Morales rubbed his forehead. "You can't fight this alone." "I won't," Ethan replied, "but I won't let him take her." His eyes went to Shadow, who sat beside the chair, alert and silent. Morales knew better than to argue. Then we bait him. He's circling you anyway. That night, Ethan sat with Lena by the fire. She clutched a mug of cocoa with both hands, eyes flicking to the shadows outside. "Will he come here?" she whispered. Ethan didn't lie. Yes. Her lip trembled, but she nodded like someone much older. Then we wait for him. Shadow lay across the doorway, the perfect sentinel. Ethan reached over and brushed a strand of hair from Lena's face. "He won't touch you," he said, voice steady. "Not while we're breathing," Lena whispered. "I believe you." 3 nights later, the trap was sprung. Morales had positioned units 2 blocks out. Ethan waited inside the cabin with Lena and Shadow. Lights dimmed, nerves coiled, a scrape at the back door, a shadow shifting across the glass. Shadow stiffened, teeth bared. Ethan raised his pistol. "Stay with the dog," he whispered to Lena. The door creaked open. Doyle Kearns stepped inside, scars lit by the fire's glow, shotgun slung loose in one hand. His smile was jagged, teeth yellow in the light. "Home sweet home," Kearns rasped. "How's our little sack of bones?" Shadow snarled. Lena clutched his collar, whispering into his fur. Ethan aimed square. "One more step, Doyle, and you won't leave here," Kearns chuckled. "Oh, soldier, you don't shoot me. You need me. Because if I go down, so do the others you haven't found yet. The network doesn't stop at me. It grows. And you'll never find them without me." The fire snapped. Smoke curled upward. For a moment, time stilled. Soldier, trafficker, child, and dog, all caught in a deadly balance. Shadow's muscles bunched. Morales's men waited in the cold, and Ethan realized this wasn't just a standoff. This was the final war for one child's future and for the soldier's own soul. Kearns stood in the doorway, scars twisted into a grin, shotgun loose in his hands. Smoke from the fire curled upward, painting his face in shadow and flame. Shadow pressed against Lena, his growl vibrating through the floorboards. Ethan's pistol stayed leveled, but his mind raced. Morales's team was still 2 blocks away. This would be settled before they got here. "You won't pull that trigger," Kearns said, voice like gravel. "Because you're not a killer anymore. You're a savior, and saviors always hesitate." Ethan's finger tightened. "Try me." The trafficker's smile widened, then he raised the shotgun. The crack of gunfire split the cabin. Ethan dove sideways, wood splintering where he'd been. Shadow leapt a black blur of muscle and fury, slamming into Kearns's arm. The shotgun discharged again, pellets tearing into the ceiling. Ethan rolled to his knees, blood pounding in his ears. He fired once, twice. One bullet struck Kearns's shoulder, spinning him back. The other shattered the shotgun, sending shards clattering across the floor. Still, the man didn't fall. He staggered forward, knife drawn now, eyes burning with hate. "You think this ends with me?" he snarled. "You can't kill the market. You can't kill demand." Shadow lunged again, clamping his jaws on Kearns's knife arm. Ethan surged forward, seizing the man's collar, and together, man and dog, they slammed him against the cabin wall. The knife skittered away. Kearns struggled, blood slick on his coat. "You're weak," he spat. "You couldn't save them then. You can't save them all now." Ethan met his eyes, steady as stone. "Number, but I can save her." He drove Kearns to the stall ground, Shadow pinning the man's chest. Morales and his officers burst through the door a moment later, weapons raised, but it was already finished. Hours later, the cabin was quiet again. Lena sat between Ethan and Shadow, cocoa steaming in her hands. Her small fingers brushed the shepherd's fur, her eyes fixed on the flames. "Is he gone?" she asked. Ethan nodded slowly. "He won't hurt anyone again." She leaned against him, heavy with exhaustion. Then, "Can I stay?" The question carved through him deeper than any wound. For the first time in years, Ethan felt something like hope. He looked at Shadow, whose eyes, steady, watchful, seemed to echo the vow Ethan couldn't yet speak aloud. "Yes," Ethan whispered finally. "You can stay." Lena's eyes closed, safe for the first time since the sack. Shadow laid his head across her lap, tail thumping once. Outside, the snow fell soft and silent, covering tracks, burying scars. Inside, soldier, child, and dog sat together, not broken pieces, but something new. A family born from fire, hunger, and loyalty.